Hello, and welcome to Sleepy Dreams. Tonight, we're drifting into the mysterious world of red tides, where the ocean transforms into something strange and beautiful, and sometimes dangerous. It's a phenomenon that has puzzled sailors, scientists, and coastal communities for centuries. A spectacle of nature that reminds us how powerful and unpredictable the microscopic world can be. I hope this video isn't too interesting. Though, if it does happen to keep you awake, at least you'll be learning something fascinating in the process, not the worst way to spend a sleepless night. Before we begin, if you enjoy drifting off to the gentle hum of science, I'd be very grateful if you tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps more sleepy minds find their way here. And while you're settling in, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Feel free to share it in the comments. It's always wonderful to see how far these quiet little journeys reach. So get cozy, let your shoulders relax, let your thoughts slow down like waves rolling gently onto shore, one after another, steady and rhythmic. And just a soft reminder before we begin. This video is for educational and relaxation purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice, a cure for insomnia, or a replacement for proper marine safety guidelines, though being cautious around unusual ocean conditions is always encouraged. Let's begin. The ocean is easy to underestimate. It looks vast and unchanging, a blue expanse stretching to the horizon. But if you look closer, really pay attention, you'll find that the ocean is teeming with life. Not just the fish and whales and dolphins we think of, but billions upon billions of microscopic organisms drifting in the currents. These tiny creatures, invisible to the naked eye, form the foundation of marine ecosystems. They produce oxygen, feed entire food chains, and occasionally, under the right conditions, they bloom in such staggering numbers that they change the very color of the water. This is what we call a red tide, though the name is a bit misleading. Not all of them are red, and they have nothing to do with actual tides. But the name has stuck, perhaps because there's something unsettling and poetic about watching the ocean turn crimson, russet, or sometimes even a milky turquoise. It's as if the sea itself is blushing, or warning us, or simply showing off. Red tides are caused by algae, specifically a type called phytoplankton. These are microscopic plant-like organisms that float near the surface of the water, capturing sunlight and performing photosynthesis, much like plants on land. Under normal conditions, phytoplankton exist in balanced numbers, going about their business quietly and invisibly. But when conditions align just right, when the water temperature, nutrient levels, sunlight, and currents hit the perfect combination, these organisms reproduce explosively. This rapid multiplication is called an algal bloom. And when the algae involved are certain species, particularly dinoflagellates, the results can be dramatic. The water changes color. The air might take on an unusual smell. And in some cases, marine life begins to die. Fish wash up on beaches. Seabirds stop singing. Shellfish become toxic. It's a cascade of effects that starts with something as small as a single cell and ripples outward to affect entire ecosystems and the people who depend on them. To understand red tides, we need to start small, microscopically small. Dinoflagellates are single-celled organisms that belong to a group of protists. They're not quite plants, not quite animals, but something in between. Most dinoflagellates are harmless. In fact, many are bioluminescent, meaning they glow when disturbed, creating those magical, sparkling waves you might have seen in nature documentaries or on a lucky beach visit. But a few species produce toxins, chemical compounds that can harm or kill other organisms. And when these toxic species bloom in huge numbers, the result is what we call a harmful algal bloom, or HABE. One of the most infamous culprits is Carenia brevis, a dinoflagellate that causes red tides along the Gulf Coast of the United States, particularly in Florida. Carenia brevis produces brevetoxins, potent neurotoxins that interfere with the nervous systems of fish, birds, marine mammals, and even humans. These toxins can become aerosolized, meaning they get carried into the air by sea spray, causing respiratory irritation in people who breathe them in. It's a strange and uncomfortable experience, standing on a beach and feeling your throat tighten, your eyes water, your lungs protest, all because of invisible cells floating offshore. But not all red tides are caused by dinoflagellates. Diatoms, another type of phytoplankton, can also bloom in massive numbers, though they tend to be less toxic. Cyanobacteria, sometimes called blue-green algae, can create blooms in both fresh and salt water, producing their own suite of toxins. Each type of organism has its own preferred conditions, its own triggers, its own ecological role. The ocean, it turns out, is not a uniform body of water. It's a patchwork of micro-environments, each one hosting different communities of microscopic life. So what causes these blooms to happen? Why do algae suddenly decide to multiply so rapidly? The answer is complex, a combination of natural factors and, increasingly, human influence. Let's start with nutrients. Algae, like all living things, need food. In this case, that means nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus. In the open ocean, these nutrients are often scarce, which keeps algal populations in check. But near coastlines, especially in areas where rivers flow into the sea, nutrient levels can be much higher. Rivers carry runoff from farms, lawns, golf courses, and sewage treatment plants, all of which contain fertilizers and organic waste rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. When this nutrient-loaded water reaches the ocean, it's like setting out a buffet for algae. They respond by reproducing rapidly, taking advantage of the sudden abundance. Temperature also plays a role. Most algae prefer warm water, and blooms are more common in late spring, summer, and early fall when ocean temperatures rise. Climate change has exacerbated this, as warming seas create more favorable conditions for blooms to occur and persist. Some scientists have noted that red tides are becoming more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting in recent decades, a trend that aligns with rising global temperatures and increased nutrient pollution. Then there's sunlight. Phytoplankton need light to photosynthesize, so clear, sunny days encourage growth. Calm seas help too, because they allow algae to stay near the surface where the light is strongest. Stormy weather can disrupt blooms by mixing the water and dispersing the cells, but once conditions settle again, the bloom can resume or even intensify. Currents and upwelling events also influence bloom formation. Upwelling occurs when deep, nutrient-rich water rises to the surface, often driven by wind patterns or ocean currents. This brings a fresh supply of nutrients from the depths, fueling rapid algal growth. In some regions, upwelling is a regular seasonal event, and red tides follow predictable patterns. In others, blooms are more erratic, appearing without warning and disappearing just as mysteriously. The interplay of all these factors, nutrients, temperature, light, currents, creates a dynamic and sometimes unpredictable environment. It's a reminder that the ocean is not a static backdrop, but a living, breathing system, constantly shifting and responding to forces both natural and human-made. When a red tide occurs, the effects can be profound. The most visible impact is the change in water color. Depending on the species of algae and their concentration, the water might turn red, brown, orange, yellow, green, or even a milky white. Some blooms are patchy, creating swirls and streaks of color across the surface. Others are dense and uniform, staining the water for miles. The sight can be beautiful in a surreal, otherworldly way, like the ocean has been painted by an invisible artist. But the beauty often comes with a cost. As algae multiply, they consume oxygen from the water, especially at night when photosynthesis stops and respiration continues. In dense blooms, oxygen levels can drop so low that fish and other marine animals suffocate. This leads to fish kills, events where thousands or even millions of dead fish wash ashore, their bodies piling up along the beach in a grim and smelly reminder of the bloom's power. The smell is one of the most memorable aspects of a red tide. Decomposing algae and fish produce a stench that's hard to describe but impossible to forget. It's a mix of rotting organic matter, sulfur compounds, and the salty tang of the sea, all combined into an odor that can carry for miles inland. Coastal residents often describe it as overwhelming, something that permeates homes, cars, and clothing. It's a sensory experience that underscores the sheer scale of the bloom and its impact on the environment. Marine mammals are also vulnerable. Dolphins, manatees, sea turtles, and whales can be poisoned by red tide toxins, either by inhaling aerosolized particles or by consuming contaminated prey. Manatees in Florida, for example, often graze on seagrass that has accumulated brevetoxins. The toxins accumulate in the manatee's body, affecting their nervous system and sometimes leading to death. It's a heartbreaking sight, watching these gentle giants struggle and succumb to something so small and invisible. Seabirds, too, are affected. Pelicans, gulls, terns, and other coastal birds feed on fish, and when those fish are full of toxins, the birds suffer. They may become disoriented, unable to fly, or lose their ability to dive and hunt. Rescue organizations often see a spike in distressed birds during red tide events, and while some can be rehabilitated, many do not survive. The toxins produced by harmful algae are remarkably potent. Brevetoxins, for example, bind to sodium channels in nerve cells, causing them to fire repeatedly. This leads to overstimulation of the nervous system, resulting in symptoms like muscle twitching, respiratory distress, seizures, and in severe cases, death. The toxins are heat stable, meaning cooking doesn't destroy them, which makes contaminated seafood dangerous even after preparation. Humans are not immune to the effects of red tides. While direct exposure to the water is usually not life-threatening, it can cause skin irritation, rashes, and a burning sensation. Swimming in bloom-affected areas is generally discouraged, especially for people with respiratory conditions like asthma. The aerosolized toxins are a bigger concern. When waves break, tiny droplets of water containing the toxins become airborne. Breathing in these droplets can cause coughing, sneezing, throat irritation, and difficulty breathing. For most people, these symptoms are temporary and resolve once they move away from the affected area. But for those with pre-existing lung conditions, the effects can be more severe and longer lasting. Then there's the issue of seafood safety. Shellfish like oysters, clams, mussels, and scallops are filter feeders, meaning they pump large volumes of water through their bodies to extract plankton for food. When red tide algae are present, shellfish accumulate the toxins in their tissues. Eating contaminated shellfish can lead to a variety of illnesses, depending on the type of toxin involved. Paralytic shellfish poisoning, or PSP, is caused by saxitoxins produced by certain dinoflagellates. Symptoms include tingling and numbness of the lips, tongue, and extremities, followed by muscle weakness, difficulty breathing, and, in severe cases, paralysis and death. There's no antidote, and treatment is supportive, focusing on maintaining breathing and heart function until the toxins are metabolized and excreted. Neurotoxic shellfish poisoning, or NSP, is caused by brevetoxins. Symptoms are generally less severe than PSP, but still unpleasant. They include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal cramps, tingling and numbness, and sometimes a reversal of hot and cold sensations. Imagine sipping hot coffee and feeling like it's ice cold, or touching a cold glass and feeling a burning sensation. It's disorienting and uncomfortable, though rarely fatal. Diuretic shellfish poisoning, or DSP, is caused by ocadaic acid and related toxins. As the name suggests, the primary symptoms are gastrointestinal, severe diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Recovery usually occurs within a few days, but it's an unpleasant experience. Amnesic shellfish poisoning, or ASP, is caused by domoic acid, a toxin produced by certain diatoms. This one is particularly concerning because it can cause permanent neurological damage. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal cramps, headache, dizziness, confusion, and in severe cases, seizures, coma, and memory loss. The memory loss can be permanent, hence the name. The risk of shellfish poisoning has led to extensive monitoring programs in many coastal areas. Regulatory agencies regularly test shellfish for toxins and issue closures when levels exceed safe thresholds. These closures are crucial for public health, but they also have economic impacts. Shellfish harvesting is an important industry in many regions, and closures can mean significant financial losses for fishermen, processors, and related businesses. The economic toll of red tides extends beyond shellfish. Tourism suffers when beaches are covered in dead fish and the air smells foul. Hotels, restaurants, and recreational businesses see declines in visitors. Charter fishing trips are canceled. Real estate values can dip in areas frequently affected by blooms. It's a ripple effect that touches many aspects of coastal economies. Yet, despite all these negative impacts, it's important to remember that algal blooms are a natural phenomenon. They've been occurring for thousands, perhaps millions of years, long before humans were around to notice or be affected by them. Historical records and indigenous oral traditions include accounts of red water, dead fish, and mysterious illnesses following seafood consumption. The difference now is that human activities have likely increased the frequency and severity of blooms, and our coastal populations are larger and more vulnerable than ever before. So, what can be done about red tides? The short answer is, it's complicated. Because blooms are driven by a mix of natural and human factors, there's no single solution. But there are steps that can help reduce the risk and mitigate the impacts. Reducing nutrient pollution is one of the most important strategies. This means improving agricultural practices to minimize fertilizer runoff, upgrading sewage treatment plants to remove more nutrients, managing stormwater more effectively, and protecting natural buffers like wetlands that filter runoff before it reaches the ocean. These measures won't prevent all blooms, but they can reduce their frequency and intensity. In some areas, efforts are underway to restore oyster reefs and seagrass beds, which help filter water and stabilize sediments, potentially reducing nutrient loads and improving water quality. Monitoring and early warning systems are also crucial. By tracking water quality, algae concentrations, and environmental conditions, scientists can often predict when and where blooms are likely to occur. This information allows authorities to issue advisories, close shellfish beds, and warn the public to avoid affected areas. Advances in satellite technology have made it possible to monitor large areas of ocean from space, detecting blooms earlier and tracking their movement. There's also ongoing research into methods for controlling or mitigating blooms once they occur. Some scientists are exploring the use of clays that can be spread on the water to bind with algae cells and cause them to sink. Others are investigating biological controls, like introducing natural predators or competitors of harmful algae. Chemical treatments, like algicides, are generally avoided because they can have unintended consequences for non-target species and the broader ecosystem. Another area of research focuses on understanding the ecology and life cycle of harmful algae. If scientists can identify what triggers a bloom to start or what causes it to end, they might be able to develop more targeted interventions. Some harmful algae have complex life cycles, with resting stages that can survive in sediments for years, waiting for the right conditions to germinate and start a new bloom. Understanding these dynamics is key to predicting and managing future events. Public education is also important. People need to know how to recognize the signs of a red tide, understand the risks, and know what to do if they encounter a bloom. Simple measures like avoiding swimming in discolored water, not harvesting shellfish from closed areas, and moving away from the shore if you experience respiratory symptoms can go a long way in preventing illness. There's also a broader conversation happening about climate change and its role in harmful algal blooms. Warmer ocean temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and more intense storms all have the potential to influence bloom dynamics. Addressing climate change through reducing greenhouse gas emissions and transitioning to cleaner energy sources is a long-term but essential part of managing red tides and protecting ocean health. But beyond the practical concerns, there's something humbling about red tides. They remind us that we share this planet with countless other organisms, many of them invisible and easy to ignore, until they suddenly make their presence known in a dramatic and undeniable way. They remind us that the ocean is not a limitless resource, not a passive body of water, but a dynamic and sometimes volatile ecosystem that responds to the way we treat it. And there's a strange beauty in it too, if you can step back from the immediate impacts and see the phenomenon for what it is. A bloom is, after all, an explosion of life. Billions of tiny organisms, each one capturing sunlight, converting it to energy, reproducing, competing, dying, and feeding the next link in the food chain. It's a microscopic drama playing out on a scale that's hard to comprehend. Under a microscope, dinoflagellates are fascinating creatures. Many have intricate armor-like plates made of cellulose, giving them a geometric, almost alien appearance. They propel themselves through the water with two whip-like structures called flagella, one wrapped around their middle like a belt, the other trailing behind like a tail. Some species have eye spots that can detect light, allowing them to swim toward or away from it, depending on their needs. And those bioluminescent species, the ones that sparkle when disturbed, are truly magical. The light is produced by a chemical reaction involving a protein called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. When the cell is jostled by a wave, a boat, or even a swimming fish, the reaction is triggered, and the cell emits a brief flash of blue-green light. It's thought to be a defense mechanism, startling predators or attracting larger animals that might eat the predator. But to a human observer, it's simply enchanting, like swimming through liquid stars. Interestingly, not all dinoflagellates are free-floating. Some form symbiotic relationships with other organisms. Zooxanthellae, for example, are dinoflagellates that live inside the tissues of corals, sea anemones, and some mollusks. They provide their hosts with food through photosynthesis, and in return, they receive shelter and access to nutrients. This partnership is essential for coral reefs, and when it breaks down, often due to stress from warm water, the result is coral bleaching, a phenomenon that's becoming increasingly common as ocean temperatures rise. The microscopic world of phytoplankton is vast and varied. In addition to dinoflagellates and diatoms, there are coccolithophores, tiny algae covered in calcium carbonate plates that can turn the ocean a milky turquoise. There are cyanobacteria, ancient organisms that were among the first to perform photosynthesis and helped create the oxygen-rich atmosphere we depend on today. And there are countless other groups, each with their own unique characteristics and ecological roles. Together, these organisms form the base of the marine food web. They're eaten by zooplankton, tiny animals that drift in the currents. Zooplankton are in turn eaten by small fish, which are eaten by larger fish, and so on up the chain to apex predators like sharks and orcas. Phytoplankton also play a critical role in the global carbon cycle. Through photosynthesis, they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and convert it into organic matter. When they die, some of that carbon sinks to the deep ocean or becomes buried in sediments, effectively removing it from the atmosphere for long periods. It's estimated that phytoplankton produce about half of the oxygen on Earth, a contribution that rivals all the forests, grasslands, and wetlands combined. So, while red tides can be harmful and disruptive, it's worth remembering that the organisms responsible for them are also part of a system that sustains life on this planet. The challenge is finding a balance, managing human activities in ways that minimize harm while respecting the complexity and resilience of marine ecosystems. One of the most studied red tide events occurred in Florida in 2017 and 2018. A massive bloom of Carenia brevis persisted for more than a year, affecting hundreds of miles of coastline. The bloom killed thousands of tons of fish, sea turtles, dolphins, and manatees. Beaches were closed, tourism plummeted, and the smell was so pervasive that it became a defining feature of daily life for coastal residents. Scientists and government agencies mobilized to study the bloom, collect samples, and provide information to the public. The event sparked renewed interest in understanding and managing red tides, and it highlighted the need for sustained research and monitoring. It also raised questions about the role of human activities. Some researchers pointed to nutrient pollution from agricultural runoff, septic systems, and stormwater as contributing factors. Others noted the influence of unusually warm water temperatures. Still others emphasized that Carenia brevis blooms have been documented in Florida for centuries, long before modern development, suggesting that natural factors play a significant role as well. The truth is likely a combination of all these factors, and disentangling them is a major focus of ongoing research. In other parts of the world, red tides take different forms. In the Pacific Northwest, blooms of dinoflagellates that produce saxitoxins can make shellfish harvesting dangerous for months. In the North Sea, blooms of cyanobacteria can create massive foam that washes ashore, looking like piles of soap suds. In Japan, red tides have been recorded for centuries, and the phenomenon is deeply embedded in local culture and folklore. In the Arabian Gulf, Blooms of fish-killing algae have caused massive die-offs in aquaculture operations, leading to economic losses and concerns about food security. Each region has its own unique challenges and patterns, but the underlying theme is the same. When microscopic organisms bloom in massive numbers, the impacts can be far-reaching and difficult to predict or control. There's also a growing awareness of the potential for harmful algal blooms in freshwater systems. Lakes, rivers, and reservoirs can experience blooms of cyanobacteria, often referred to as blue-green algae, which can produce toxins that affect drinking water supplies, recreational activities, and aquatic life. These blooms are often linked to nutrient pollution from agriculture, urban runoff, and wastewater, and they are becoming more common in many parts of the world. The toxins produced by cyanobacteria, such as microcystins, can cause liver damage, neurological effects, and skin irritation in humans and animals. Pets are particularly vulnerable, as they may drink contaminated water or lick their fur after swimming in affected areas. There have been numerous reports of dogs dying after exposure to toxic algae blooms, a tragic reminder of the real-world consequences of water quality issues. Managing freshwater blooms presents many of the same challenges as managing marine red tides. Reducing nutrient pollution is key, but it requires coordinated efforts across entire watersheds involving farmers, municipalities, industries, and homeowners. Monitoring and early warning systems can help identify blooms before they become severe, allowing authorities to issue advisories and protect public health. In some cases, aeration or circulation systems can be installed in lakes and reservoirs to disrupt conditions that favor bloom formation. But these interventions are expensive and not always effective, especially in large bodies of water. Despite the challenges, there are success stories. In some regions, efforts to reduce nutrient pollution have led to measurable improvements in water quality and reductions in the frequency and severity of harmful algal blooms. The Chesapeake Bay, for example, has seen progress in recent decades thanks to coordinated efforts to reduce nutrient runoff from farms and urban areas. While the bay still experiences blooms, particularly in hot, dry summers, the overall trend has been positive. Similarly, in the Baltic Sea, international cooperation to reduce nutrient loads has led to improvements in water quality, though challenges remain. These examples show that while managing harmful algal blooms is difficult, it's not impossible. It requires commitment, collaboration, and a willingness to address the underlying causes, not just the symptoms. There's also a growing recognition that indigenous knowledge and traditional practices can offer valuable insights into managing coastal and marine resources. Many indigenous communities have long histories of observing and adapting to natural cycles, including algal blooms. Their knowledge of local ecosystems, seasonal patterns, and safe harvesting practices can complement scientific research and inform management strategies. By bringing together different ways of knowing, we can develop more holistic and effective approaches to living with and protecting the ocean. As we drift deeper into the topic of red tides, it's worth pausing to appreciate the sheer scale and complexity of the ocean. It covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface, contains 97% of the planet's water, and is home to an incredible diversity of life, from the smallest bacteria to the largest whales. We've explored only a fraction of it. The deep sea remains largely unknown, a vast frontier that holds countless mysteries. And even in the surface waters, where red tides occur, there's still so much we don't understand. Every bloom is unique, shaped by a combination of factors that vary from place to place and year to year. Some blooms dissipate quickly, while others persist for months. Some are toxic, others are harmless. Some occur in predictable patterns, others appear without warning. This variability makes red tides both fascinating and frustrating to study. Scientists use a variety of tools to monitor and investigate red tides. Satellites equipped with sensors can detect changes in ocean color, providing a bird's-eye view of bloom extent and movement. Ships and buoys collect water samples, measuring things like algae concentration, nutrient levels, temperature, and salinity. Underwater gliders, autonomous vehicles that cruise through the water, collecting data, are increasingly used to study blooms in real time. And in the lab, researchers culture algae, study their genetics, and test their responses to different conditions, trying to unlock the secrets of why and how blooms occur. Advances in molecular biology have opened new avenues of research. Scientists can now sequence the genomes of harmful algae, identifying the genes responsible for toxin production and other key traits. This information can help predict which species are most likely to cause problems and under what conditions. It can also inform efforts to develop early warning systems based on genetic markers detected in water samples. There's also growing interest in the role of viruses in controlling algal populations. Just as humans can be infected by viruses, so too can algae. Marine viruses are incredibly abundant, and they play a major role in regulating phytoplankton populations. Some researchers are exploring whether viruses could be used to control harmful algal blooms, essentially infecting and killing the algae before they reach problematic levels. It's a promising idea, but one that requires careful study to ensure it doesn't have unintended consequences for other organisms or ecosystem processes. Another intriguing area of research involves the microbiome of algae. Just as humans have gut bacteria that influence our health, algae are associated with communities of bacteria that may affect their growth, toxin production, and survival. Understanding these relationships could lead to new strategies for managing blooms, such as promoting beneficial bacteria that inhibit harmful algae. The intersection of technology and ecology is opening up exciting possibilities. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are being used to analyze vast amounts of data, identify patterns, and make predictions about bloom dynamics. Drones equipped with cameras and sensors can survey coastal areas quickly and efficiently, providing detailed information about bloom extent and impacts. Citizen science initiatives engage the public in monitoring and reporting blooms, expanding the reach of research efforts and raising awareness about ocean health. These tools and approaches are transforming our understanding of red tides and our ability to respond to them. But they also remind us that science is an ongoing process, a journey rather than a destination. Each new discovery raises new questions. Each answer leads to deeper mysteries. And there's a philosophical dimension to all of this. Red tides force us to confront the limits of our control over nature. We can study, monitor, predict, and mitigate, but we can't stop blooms from happening. They're part of the ocean's natural rhythms, expressions of its complexity and dynamism. In a way, they're a reminder that the ocean is not ours to command. It has its own agenda, its own cycles, its own rules. And while we can influence those cycles, sometimes for better and sometimes for worse, we can't dictate them. This humility is important. In an age where technology often promises solutions to every problem, red tides remind us that some challenges don't have easy answers. They require patience, adaptability, and a willingness to live with uncertainty. They also remind us of the interconnectedness of all things. What happens on a farm in the interior can affect water quality at the coast. What happens in the atmosphere through climate change can affect ocean temperatures and bloom dynamics. What happens in one part of the food web can ripple through the entire ecosystem. Red tides are, in a sense, a microcosm of the broader challenges we face in managing our relationship with the planet. They reflect the consequences of our actions, the complexity of natural systems, and the need for collaboration and innovation. But they also reflect the resilience and adaptability of life. Algae have been on this planet for billions of years, surviving ice ages, asteroid impacts, and countless other upheavals. They'll be here long after we're gone, continuing their quiet work of capturing sunlight and converting it into life. For those who live on the coast, red tides are a fact of life, an occasional disruption that requires vigilance and adaptation. Fishermen learn to read the signs, watching for changes in water color, unusual fish behavior, or birds acting strangely. Shellfish harvesters know to check closure notices before heading out. Beachgoers become attuned to the smell and appearance of the water. It's a kind of ecological literacy, a knowledge that comes from living close to the ocean and paying attention to its moods. And there's a certain resilience in coastal communities that's worth celebrating. After a red tide passes, beaches are cleaned, fish populations recover, and life goes on. People adapt, improvise, and carry on. There's a recognition that the ocean gives and takes, provides and challenges, and that living on the coast means accepting both the beauty and the occasional hardship. In some cultures, the ocean is seen as a living being, deserving of respect and care. This perspective offers a different way of thinking about red tides and other environmental challenges. Rather than seeing the ocean as a resource to be exploited or a problem to be solved, we might see it as a partner, a presence that we coexist with and whose health is inseparable from our own. This shift in perspective doesn't make the practical challenges go away, but it can change how we approach them, fostering a sense of stewardship and responsibility. As we near the end of our journey through the world of red tides, it's worth reflecting on what we've learned. We've explored the microscopic organisms that cause blooms, the conditions that trigger them, and the wide-ranging impacts they have on marine life, human health, and coastal economies. We've seen how natural factors and human activities intertwine to shape bloom dynamics, and we've considered the strategies being used to monitor, manage, and mitigate these events. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: the ocean is not separate from us. It's not a distant, alien world that we can ignore or take for granted. It's intimately connected to our lives, our climate, our food, and our future. What we do on land affects what happens in the sea, and what happens in the sea, in turn, affects us. Red tides are a reminder of that connection, a signal that something is out of balance. They're not inherently good or bad. They're simply a phenomenon, a natural process that becomes problematic when it occurs too frequently, too intensely, or in places where people and marine life are vulnerable. Understanding them requires science, but responding to them requires something more. It requires empathy, foresight, and a willingness to change the way we live and interact with the natural world. It's a tall order, but it's also an opportunity to learn, to innovate, to collaborate, and to build a more sustainable and resilient future. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, let your mind wander to the ocean. Imagine the waves rolling in, steady and rhythmic, the sound of water against sand, the smell of salt in the air. Picture the microscopic world beneath the surface, billions of tiny organisms drifting in the currents, capturing sunlight, reproducing, interacting, all part of a vast and intricate web of life. Think of the red tides, those moments when the invisible becomes visible, when the ocean reveals a hint of its hidden complexity. And remember that every breath you take, every bite you eat, every moment you spend in wonder at the natural world is connected to that ocean and to the countless organisms that call it home. The ocean has been here for billions of years, and it will be here long after we're gone. But the time we have now, this moment, is precious. It's a chance to learn, to protect, to appreciate, and to live in harmony with the rhythms of the sea. Red tides may be unsettling, but they're also a testament to the power and resilience of life. They remind us that the ocean is not a static backdrop, but a living, breathing, ever-changing presence. And they invite us to pay attention, to listen, and to care. So, with that thought, let yourself relax. Let the worries of the day drift away like foam on the tide. Let your breathing slow, steady, and rhythmic, like the rise and fall of waves. And let yourself sink into sleep, knowing that the ocean, in all its mystery and majesty, continues its ancient dance, indifferent to our concerns, yet inseparable from our fate. And with that, we've reached the end of our exploration of red tides. I hope you found this journey through the microscopic world of algae, toxins, and ocean dynamics both informative and soothing. If you're still awake, I hope it's not because I was too interesting. Though, if I was, at least you've learned something new about the incredible complexity of our oceans. And if you're already drifting off, may your dreams be filled with gentle waves, glowing bioluminescence, and the quiet understanding that even the smallest organisms can shape the world in powerful ways. Before you go, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. Are you near the coast or far inland? Have you ever witnessed a red tide? Or is this your first introduction to the phenomenon? Drop a comment and share your thoughts. And if you found this video relaxing or informative, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to Sleepy Dreams. It helps me keep bringing you more calming, curious content about the natural world and the science that shapes it. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the mysterious world of red tides. Sleep well, dream deep, and remember that the ocean, for all its vastness and power, is as delicate as it is mighty. It needs our care, our respect, and our attention. And in return, it offers us beauty, wonder, and the quiet reminder that we are all connected, part of something much larger than ourselves.